All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start in just a few minutes, so if we can find a seat, might even have to set up one. Yeah, there's a couple chairs up front. You can all race for it. All right, once again, good afternoon, or depending where you are in the world, watching right now, good, where would that, is it evening? Okay. Welcome, and thank you for coming on behalf of Margaret's family and friends. Thank you for being here. And yeah, thank you for filling this place. Earlier, I asked Tony to make a guess on how many people would be here. She didn't want to. And so I offered her $1,000 to guess right. And she said 57. So I want to thank the 10 people that might not have been coming but did come, because yeah, we're well over that mark. Funerals and memorials are a very important part and occasion in the lives of every culture across the world. The Bible tells us in the book of Ecclesiastes that there's a time for everything, in particular, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Now, memorials and funerals could be a time to dance. I mean, in honor of Margaret, like she was a real mover and shaker, right? Oh, good, I got some laughs. Phew. However, just so you know, we are live streaming, so if you do want to dance, it will be recorded forever. Well, as long as the internet is around anyways. But this is actually what makes memorials really special. This opportunity to do all of these things, to laugh, but to also mourn, to cry, to tell stories that make us sad to tell them, but maybe they're so funny they make us laugh at the same time. This is a weird thing that I had to overcome when I was a kid. I would go to funerals and think we're supposed to be sad. But then people would tell jokes and there would be laughter and I would think this is wrong, and it's not. That's what's really great about these occasions, is that it's an opportunity to go through a whole range of emotions and do it together. So together today, we gather in sadness to remember the stories. But in the telling of stories, we laugh. Today we gather to mourn, but we also celebrate not only a life well lived, but a life that is now free from the constraints of an earthly body. Today we gather to honor a beautiful lady, and we have come to really honor her. But she is not here in person, so we can tease her as well. You see, Margaret was a teaser, and I always felt guilty teasing someone with Parkinson's, so I couldn't do it to her face. So, once again, this is a time where we get to do all these things and do it together. Let's pray. Creator God, we pause to thank you for life. But we also recognize the inevitability of death. We take this moment out of our own lives to honor the life of another, your child, Margaret. We thank you for her life and for this opportunity to share our experience with her, with others. God, in this time of laughter and also mourning, grant us peace. God, grant us the assurance that Margaret is now free from those struggles that she experienced day to day in these last few years. Be with us today. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to invite Carrie Ann, who has diligently prepared a eulogy for us. So, come on up.
Diligently. I can't even say it as well, so that's good. So I want to welcome my parents. They are live streaming from Norway, as well as my sister. Hi, I don't know where they are, but they're watching. So obviously they wanted to be here. My mom and my aunt were very close. Tony, Chris, and I are more like siblings. I moved to Canada when I was in my early 20s, and my auntie took me in as an orphan Annie. So very close to my family. Welcome. It's so nice to see everybody. There's some people that I haven't seen in years, and Others, everybody looks the same as they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, some 40. Thank you guys for being here. So how do you speak about somebody in a short eulogy like Margaret? I called her Margie, Auntie Margie. She had so many different friends, so many different groups of people that she loved and cared for. And I think it's hard to talk about somebody's legacy when you have so many different components. I would say, and I think anybody that knows my aunt will say that her great joy and her legacy was her children, Tony and Chris. And I don't know if you know her really well, but when she became a grandmother, that turned everything around. And I think that if she was up to her, she would have liked to have them first. So Keelan and Aidan were absolutely their grandmother's joy in life. And there wasn't a moment she wouldn't speak about them. If you ever went to Auntie Margie's home, you remember the kindergarten, grade 1 pictures of the children and how they grew. And we were talking about this last night, that Tony and Jim they didn't get to add that last part for Keelan and Aidan. So that will be done in their home now and transfer that over to from Auntie Margie's home to their home. She was so proud. And she was very proud of my children as well. And we kind of giggled because Aidan and Alex, my oldest, they kind of look alike, and Keelan and Marcus. And so it's one of those familiarities, and they all look the same. And Auntie Margie loved telling those stories about how our children look the same and how successful and great they did. She's very proud. And she wanted me to talk today because I'm a talker and I babble, even though English is my second language, so if you don't understand me. So Auntie Margie's name was Sheila Margaret Svoboda. Sheila was from my grandmother's, that was her grandmother's name, but so Auntie Margie started being called Margaret. And it was interesting, my son just said that to me today. He goes, how did I never know that? How did I never know that her name was Sheila until now? That was my grandbaby talking. Obviously, she's just like me, she's a talker. Auntie Margie was born in Kamloops. That's where I live right now, so obviously it's a full circle moment. They lived in Penticton at the time. I don't know if anybody knows this. Some of her older friends were, they lived in Penticton, but they were worried about her being born there, so they traveled to Kamloops and they had her and went back to Penticton. My mom told me this story. And then they traveled around those few years because of my grandfather was in the RCMP. So they lived in Salmon Arm, they lived in Karameas, they went to Victoria, back and forth, and she explored a lot of these areas that was later in life important to her. She went to university in Victoria. I don't know if there's any of her university friends around here. I think they're right back here in this little area right there. And she went to Victoria for university, and then she came back to the Okanagan and met Uncle Marcel. And that was an interesting match. Right? And they were just this unique couple full of life, and they settled down in the Okanagan, and my auntie started teaching in Costin. So I was wondering, did she go anywhere else besides Costin, Joan? Was it just Costin? Karameas and Costin. Tony and I were talking about that this morning. So she taught grade 1 to 2 and up there, and we all came and watched her teach. That was her passion. Seeing her in front of her children, teaching them how to read. That thing for my aunt was everything. Having those conversations with these little children. When I moved here from Norway, I was like the show and tell person. I got to come to her classroom, Joan's laughing. I got to wear my Norwegian costume, and I got to come and sing Norwegian songs, and Auntie thought that was just the best. And I got to come and do that. And later in life, when she moved to Kaleden, and there might be some of her friends from Kaleden here as well, she would volunteer at the school. And she would do reading with the kids again. And that was so nice to see her face when she spoke about those moments of teaching and just keeping that up. And I remember, I'm totally dyslexic. There's a reason I'm not reading right now is because I probably don't even know my own words. But her being so proud when we learned how to read. And every one of us, the moment somebody knew how to read, that was a huge moment for my aunt. Very powerful. So she married Uncle Marcel in 1967. Seems like a lifetime ago. Tony, you were born in 69. Chris came over in 70, right after, and then there was a lot of trouble. Chris was born in 70. So they bought the place in Karamias, and she continued teaching and raising the kids in that area around the farm until they were ready to retire and came to Kaleden. Obviously, there's a lot in between there, guys, but he only gave me 10 minutes, and I'm running out. So, I'm just joking. I know. So, it's true. They had, Auntie Margie loved to travel. She came to Norway 3 times when I was growing up. I remember my auntie coming. They had a plan to also go right when Uncle Marcel got sick. They had a trip planned. So after Uncle Marcel passed, she actually went on a big cruise with my parents. They went on a Mediterranean cruise. They traveled everywhere around there. I don't know how many. My mom's probably sitting there yelling at the TV right now, telling how many places they went to. So I love this one story. So my dad knows a lot of people, and he knew the captain of another one of these cruise ships. And so they came to this big cruise ship. And next thing you know, they were invited to the captain's table. So we have this picture of my aunt beside the captain in this really beautiful big cruise boat. And she was telling everybody how she knew the captain of the ship. And he was sitting with her. She was in a wheelchair. They traveled all over Europe in the wheelchair. And it was lovely. And we talked about that and how they got these trips, even as her mobility was anyway, going downhill. Thank you for helping. And she was in a wheelchair, and they helped her around. So that was very nice that she got to continue a lot of these things that she loved to do even after Uncle Marcel died. I see they have the bells here. She loved the bells. She liked the bell ringers. Thank you. And what was the purple with the purple hats? Royal Purple. Love that. I know there's some ladies here from the Royal Purple. She was very proud of all of that. She loved visiting Tony and Jim in Delta. She loved watching the hockey games. Anything that they had to do with the kids was a big, huge thing in the last few years. Sorry, I'm getting there.
What did you tell her?
No, I'm just joking. Okay, I had one here. My mom was telling me the story this morning when they were younger. So I have a feeling because my mom and my auntie, they lost their parents very young. So being parents was very important to them. That connection they had with their children and with us. And my mom said she went to visit my aunt when Tony was born. And she had a week away from school, and she came there to visit. And my mom was laying on the bed just relaxing, and Auntie Margie walks in and dropped Tony on top of her and just walked away. And my mom goes, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm on holiday." And she goes, "Sometimes a change is the same as a rest." So I thought that was really a good one. And it's true. Sometimes a change is the same as the rest. Auntie Margie had a great sense of humor. She was a funny lady. She could be really dry. You didn't really know what she was going to come up with. But she had just a fantastic sense of humor. And even as her health was struggling, she would actually not make fun of herself, but she would, right? Like, I'd be in the kitchen, and I'm like, "Are you coming?" And she would be doing her little walk, right? And she goes, "You might as well start lunch, because breakfast is going to be done by the time I get to the kitchen," right? So she had these little jokes that was really funny. It was hard to see her struggle for the family. And I don't think that there's words big enough to thank the support she had in the last while. The fact that we had some and I'm going to get teary, just amazing help from her family and friends. And Nicole, thank you. It made us feel good about her being here in Kaleden. Tony and the kids are in the coast. I'm in Kamloops. And Chris was trying all of his own here. So thank you so much for making that end of her time so good. And this is the story I had to tell. So Auntie did not want to go into a home. No way. She wanted to stay as long as she could. And being a social worker, I get that. I understand that. We were going to do whatever we could for her to stay. So then Tony and Chris, they talked to her about maybe going into respite. Maybe we should try that for a weekend in Penticton. How about we try that and see? And so she reluctantly agreed. to go to this place for respite. I want you guys to all know she broke out. She actually physically broke out from the respite place. She had a housekeeper help her pack her bags, and she had Chris pick her up outside. And when Tony called me and she goes, I said, how's respite going for Mom? Oh no, she broke out. And I said, she actually left? And they said, yes, she did. Right, Chris? You had to go pick your mom up. And then she told us that was never happening again. So the fact that Auntie got to have the last part of her journey in Kaleden as a community means the world to our family. And I want to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart and from Tony and Chris and our family for the journey and the church and from her friends and family. And I also want to mention her lifelong friends. You three know who you are. She loved you more than anything. She was stubborn, and she was ferocious, and she was just amazing, and she was a force to be reckoned with. And she was also my second mom. I have nothing more. That was it. Thank you guys all for that. Just kind of wraps up my aunt and an amazing human she was, and she's here, and she's laughing at us all right now. Thank you.
I have the overwhelming sense that I was thrown under a bus. You do remember my first rule about funerals, right? There are no rules. Thank you, Carrie Ann. Are these yours?
Yes.
Yes, I do remember that short respite. As soon as I heard that she had gone, and I called to find out if I could come to visit, she was already back home. I thought that was all planned, but we're going to take some time right now to share our Margaret stories. And for people that may be watching online, you can actually even type in the chat box if you are able to log into Google or YouTube. You can put something in the chat box, and I'll read it out in a little bit. For the folks here, if you're too nervous to get up, I guess you could do the same thing, go on your phone and put something in the chat box. But I encourage you to come up and share a story in a minute. But first I'm going to invite up Jim, and he's got something to share.
Thanks for warming up the room. Not really great at public speaking, but I try and do the best I can. All right. For most of you who don't know me, Margaret is and always will be my mother-in-law. This is a celebration, and after all, so if you have special moments, as we were just saying, if you have something that made you laugh so hard milk came out your nose, please come up. I invite you to come up and share your stories. This is mine. Margaret being an elementary school teacher, I thought I would do elementary school type poem. So, your daughter brought me home, back to the farm. I was hoping you liked me, had to put on the charm. As time progressed, Tony and I fell in love. We told you of marriage. I guess push came to shove. A mother-in-law is not something to dread. You welcomed me with open arms instead. I gave you grandsons. You gave me books. You treated me fairly, no dirty looks. Aiden, your grandson, he was the first. Then came the second, so he wasn't the worst. Grandson 2 plays hockey. Keelan's not too bad. You came when you could, of that we are glad. A fan of Dr. Seuss? Yes, yes I am. So you went and bought me green eggs and ham. To this very day, I still have that book. I will cherish it always, still read to my schnooks. I love you on a plane, I love you on a train. Love you on a bus. We miss you so much. From you I learned about apples and peaches, ice cream and tickleberries, and time on the beaches. We never did see those starbelly sneeches. We came when we could, sometimes far apart. One more morning coffee, one more heart to heart. You gave me the greatest gift of my life. You call her my daughter, I call her my wife. The time has come to say goodbye. Sorry. Can't call you on the phone. You were always with us. We know we're not alone. Thank you. So I invite you all to, if you have stories, anything, please come and share. Thank you.
Somebody go up. Well, I'm not
Here to go first. So Auntie Margie was my great aunt. I have a memory. We were in Kamloops in 2003, and we were evacuated by the fires. And we came and stayed with her, and it was like a vacation, even though our house might have burned down. But no, it was yeah, it was just like having another grandma in Canada. And with COVID, we didn't get to see her a whole lot over the last couple of years, but definitely miss her. And yeah.
The story I have, I wasn't even able to remember it myself. I've heard it through the years, but I think it was that same time my Mufa was here from Norway. He's probably watching if he figured how to do it, but he and Margie took me to Safeway to go shopping. And I was about 2 years old, and 2-year-olds, as my niece can show you, they can be a little loud, a little rambunctious. So there was something I wanted on the shelf, and I really wanted it. Really wanted it. So I started crying, started hitting stuff, started having a tantrum on the floor, punching the ground. Mufa's looking at me like this, wondering what to do, and Margie's already gone. She's got the cart, she's still going. And Mufa goes, "Well, what are you doing?" "He'll stop soon, don't worry." So then he goes, "Okay." Follows with her. Sure enough, I don't remember, but I'm still in the aisle, and I guess I came to, and I just kind of looked around looking for them, and they're 2 aisles down, still going. 5-10 minutes later, they come back. Margie goes, "Okay, you done? You done now? Okay, let's go." Finish the rest of the shopping, and I don't think I ever had a tantrum in a Safeway ever again. No. So she she was an amazing woman, and really, like we've said, knew a lot about kids, especially difficult ones like us. So yeah, she was.
Cracked your head open.
Well, yeah, that same trip. I have a permanent mark here from Margie's fireplace. We're playing. Well, it wasn't her fault, it was completely ours. But the story goes, I think I had a blanket on my head and I was running around doing something else. And then sure enough, 7 stitches later, I always remember her and the fireplace. So.
We told you it was the fireplace.
Yeah, it was something else, maybe. I don't know. That's the story.
Well, I remember that, like, Margie was not phased. Like, our Mufa was wrapping Marcus's head up, and Margie, I think, was just doing whatever in the kitchen. Blood everywhere, and
Yeah,
he went to the hospital. And
seems to be freaking out. And Margie was a very cool operator, so. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, police officer in Norway. Yeah, I guess they don't deal with a lot, but yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to go first? Okay, I'll be quick. It's really quick. Yeah, okay. So how I met Margaret on her first day we moved, and I was on the deck, and she was standing by the septic tank. And she goes, "Hey, are you the new neighbor?" And I said, "Hey, yeah, my name is Daisy." And she goes, "Oh, I'm Margaret. I see you've got 2 sons there. Can they come down and lift the lid off?" "Welcome to Kaleden," she said.
Here we go, folks. Love you forever. Hello, Norway. Susan and I we graduated together. So I knew of Margie. She was the older girl, and became friends when we moved back to Kaleden. One afternoon, Margaret called me up, and she asked if I would please come up to see her. And she had put aside some cups and saucers and some of the Norwegian pewter, Susan, that you gave Margie, okay? She gave it to me. And she said, "I want you to have this teacup." And I just had my 55th wedding anniversary, brought out the teacup and a bunch of Margaret's cards that she's famous for making. And I had it out. And you know what's a teacup? It's forget me not. And I never will. And I was blessed to know her.
My name is Tom Farron. I've lived in Karameas for about 26 years, and I knew their dad, you know, and it was really good. Now, I was a cabinet maker, so Marcel and I, we really got to be real good friends, and Margaret. But I was at Margaret's house. Marcel asked me to come out there and do a little job in the kitchen for him. So I did. I went out and doing the kitchen. And Margaret come in, and I said, "Well, how's that?" And she said, "Fine." I says, "Is there anything else that you would like me to do?" She says, "Yes, there is one thing I'd like you to do." She says, "I have got one of those umbrella clotheslines." She says, "And I've been after Marcel to put that in for 13 years. She said, "Will you go out and do that?" And I went out and dug the hole and put the clothesline in. She said, finally, somebody was going to do it for me. But Margaret and I got along great. Marcel, now he was a barber. And I'd go to him and I said, "Well, I need a haircut." So he'd give me a haircut. And I said, "Well, next time you can just correct all your mistakes." And we joked like that all the time. And it was really, when they moved away, I really missed them. Because we were really good friends, you know. You miss people, you know. And you remember the little things that they would tell you and that. So this is what I did. But after 13 years, I guess it was time to put that clothesline up for it. But thank you very much. I just had to tell you that.
You know that old adage, don't judge a book by its cover? Well, that's exactly what I did when I first met Margaret. And Margaret was kind of like, you know, the Clark Kent Superman type of personality. And I pegged her as the Clark Kent personality. Well, after I got to know her a little bit, I discovered the alter ego started to come out. And the first thing I noticed was that Margaret was tough. She had strength like you wouldn't believe. And she fought that crummy Parkinson's disease for over 20 years. And she fought it with everything she had. She changed her medication. She fought with her doctors to bring the dosage up and the dosage down. She did her exercises, she walked her dogs, she changed her diet, she took her supplements. She worked like crazy. She was as relentless as that disease. That lady had grit, real grit. And that's the first thing I know about her. The second thing I discovered about her, which was slightly more shocking, was that she seemed mild-mannered and maybe even a little conservative. Boy, was I wrong. That lady had opinions. And she told you them. She was not remiss in that. We had a book study, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and Margaret wasn't going out in the evenings, but she wanted to go to that book study. So she asked my sister for a copy of the book. So Judith gave it to her, and I can remember Judith coming back to me and saying, well, this will be interesting. And I thought, well, yeah, maybe. But my sister she must have been judging by the Clark Kent personality. So the book was entitled something like, Why Did Jesus, Moses, Buddha, and Muhammad cross the road? And it was a study about those 4 major world religions. It was not probably the reading suitable for a conservative Christian. So both of us were a little tentative about this. Well, Margaret came back in about 4 weeks or so, and she brought that book up to Judith, and she put it down on the desk in front of her, and she said, that is exactly what I've always believed. Okay, wow. The lady was feisty. But the thing that I loved best about Margaret, that I didn't discover until later, because I'm a little slow, that lady had a wicked sense of humor. Wicked. And it took me a while. Like, I'm pretty sassy, and I used to tease her and badger her. But you know what? She always got the better of me, and I was always so shocked. She looked so quiet and naive, and she was not. It took me a long time to notice, and then I started to notice. I started to kind of expect it. She must have thought I was really slow, because this went on for a very long time. But she would she was kind of like my dad. You know, when he came to his punchline, he would get this little smirk on his face. And she was sort of like that. At first, if she was going to zing you with something, she would not look at you directly. I think she was afraid that if she looked at you directly, you'd figure out she was going to get you. But so she'd turn her face away, but she'd be watching out of the corner of her eye because she knew what was coming. She knew she was going to get you, and she did not want to miss that reaction. So and just as she was going to come out with the best line, she would do something funny with her mouth. It's like she was forming the words in her mouth, and then, man, she laid you bare. That was it. Your hide was pinned to the wall. But then she would laugh like anything. She took great delight in getting the better of you, getting the best of you. And she was the same with games. That lady loved games. But she loved to win. Exactly. She was a fine loser. She was very gracious. But oh my gosh, when she won, the last time I saw her, I was up like a sucker playing at her dining room table, a game I didn't even know. So she won like 3 games in a row. And you could see her. She just won the last time. And you could see her doing a mental victory dance in her head. And you could almost hear the woo, 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 you know? And then she'd laugh again. And when she laughed, her nose would crinkle up, her eyes would virtually disappear, and she would just roar with laughter. She was shameless, that woman. She was one amazing lady. And this whole part of her that came out that I discovered later, I loved dearly. I'm going to miss her a lot.
Yeah, just come on up. Just a reminder for those that might be watching online, you can throw a comment in the box and I'll read it for you. I'm just going to say a quick note from David Jenkins, who says, just a quick note to mention, I really appreciated working with Margaret on the library renovations. She read through a bulk of the fiction books in order to determine which ones could stay and which ones definitely needed to go. If it hadn't been for her good work, it is quite possible that while walking into the church today, books would have fallen on your head. Thank you.
Here it is. Joan Popovich from Karamias, and Margaret and I taught, 25, 30 years together, and we had a lot of experiences. I always felt we were sort of one soul together. We used to write our messages in the morning to our children, and she would write hers in her room, I would write mine in my room, and then we'd look at each other's, and they were almost the same. But a few things about Margaret. We used to escape on Pro D days, the last few days of August. They never should have had them then, and we would go to Manning Park with our books, and we would camp. But we were learning and doing what we needed to do for the next year, the school year. And when they were remodeling Coston, Margaret and I were put into the basement of the school board office. Now, the school board office had a keypad that you had to put in if you were leaving. So we were sitting in the basement, and we saw the secretary of the school board come down the stairs. We heard the click, 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 click. The alarm was on, and we're sitting in the basement. So we looked at each other, what do we do? Didn't have a clue. So the alarm went off because we had to move, of course. Yeah, that was one of the things in the basement, but we were so proud of ourselves, we put up the alphabet because we were teaching grade 1, and we were combined at that point in time. So we had 52 children, and the alphabet went across the top, and we were so thrilled with ourselves. We sat back, looked at the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, H, I, J. Oh, we forgot the J. So the G had to go back up. Anyhow, that was our school thing, but I also rang bells, handbells, with Margaret, and she kept saying to me, you have to join handbells. I said, no, I don't want to join handbells. Well, we're a singing group too. I said, I don't sing. That's okay, we take anything. So, Margaret, dear Margaret, I love the words from this book. Favorite. So, Margaret, I love you forever. I like you for always. As long as I'm living, my friend, you will be. Thank you.
Tony and Chris, you guys have the option here of closing this section if you're up for it.
Hi, Auntie and Uncle.
Yeah, I don't know the night before she died. It was pretty cool. I guess
Yeah,
I guess.
sure, yeah.
Yeah. Dorothy? I think, eh?
Oh, I didn't come up this Christmas because Dorothy came up. She had everybody else. Chris?
Yeah.
But I did talk to her that night before she passed. And they both kind of said that, I kind of always say, how you doing? And they both said they didn't know. So I thought that was a conversation after all the Christmas fun. But I found out later it wasn't. You tell them about the fun. I wasn't there.
I forget what you're talking about. Sounds good. Go keep going.
No, Christmas, or that night.
Oh, that
she
night.
came up.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah,
Did you know I didn't know that?
I was leading you into that.
Okay. Just that night, I was downstairs, and Deborah was with us here, and Dorothy was with Mum upstairs, and Dorothy had phoned me and asked me to come up and pray with Mum. So I went upstairs and prayed with Mum, and she was kind of not doing too good. I won't get into why, but, and I'm not gonna. Anyway, she's kind of, her movements have come up, and a lot of movements, and she's just sweating. And Deborah tried to help her, and she got Mum an ice pack, and Deb was like, where do you want it? Where do you want it? And all of a sudden she grabs it, like, whap, puts it on her head. Because she's having fun with her movement, so she had to grab it quick and put it on there. So, but yeah, prayed for her, and then she wanted us to get wanted me to bring my guitar up and just to do some music. So Dorothy, I, and Deborah and Mom were doing some music, and usually I'm always trying to get her to bring the shaker out. It's a little leggy little shaker, and she always trying to. But anyway, I didn't think about it that night. All of a sudden, she just took off, and she's kind of going down the hallway with the cart, just boogieing down the hallway, and she comes back with the shaker, and she's just shaking and shaking and shaking, and I'm playing the guitar, and we're singing, and yeah, she lost her shaker, and she went up, picked it up, and started shaking again. So, but it was just cool, and I was sitting on the couch because I haven't. That was it.
That was it.
Yeah, always been the best son, but I've been through some challenges myself, and but it was just
That was the moment.
love in her eyes when I was sitting on the couch facing the east, and you could just see the love in her eyes. She just knew that something was it, right? So next morning, Dorothy come and said she's on Chris like about 6 in the morning. Chris, she's on the floor, and I said, because she did that before, and I threatened her. She didn't get up. We'll call the ambulance, right? So, but it was we got her up a couple of times here and there, but she was doing something in the middle of the night, and she was changing or something, and because I heard him up around just after 12 at night, and Dorothy and Mom Dorothy was in there seeing how she was and getting her ready for bed, but anyway, she was in a better place, obviously, because I got her one book, and it says God wants you well, and it's not when Jesus, what he did for us on the cross. It's not just to save us from our sins, but it's for the healing too, because the stripes that he took on his back, on his body, is for healing. It's for everything, right? So, and there's a lot more to it than that too. So, but she didn't believe that before, because I gave her the book, and she says, there's something interesting about that book. It's not just for the forgiveness of sins, but for your healing too. And it's right now, and God is here now. He's alive. He's real, and he heals, right? So, because I've had healing myself. And a friend of mine introduced me to a ministry in Woodland Park, Colorado, and he was actually born and raised Catholic, but he prayed for me at Walmart shoe store. My hands are way up in the air, and I said, pray for my back, right? And I was healed. But she was just happy to know that, so she was doing so much better with that. So.
And that was that?
Yeah. That was that, but
Thanks for everybody for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's next?
I'll see. Yeah. Sure. You're going to sing a song? Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks for everyone who shared. That's awesome.
Any more questions? Anybody text anything?
I didn't see any. No. No comments online. Everybody sort of has, if you didn't see it, there's this book that's up on the stand here that we thought it would be a great way to honor your mom, right? And Keelan, you're pretty brave to want to read this for us, but I thank you for that. And so you're going to come up and give it a shot? I've got your back, though, remember? Okay?
Okay, well, as you know, I'm Keelan, the second grandchild, the one that caused more problems and more trouble throughout the house. I just wanted to quickly share the story that Marcus told with hitting his head on the thing. She probably did tell me, but I definitely was not listening, because she'd always tell me when I come over and run it around, oh, be careful, I don't want to hit your head on the fireplace, this happened, oh, blah, 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 blah. I just kept playing, I didn't listen. Luckily, I never did hit my head on the fireplace, like some people. But she always reminded me not to. not to slip and fall. Okay, yeah. A lot of you seem to know, obviously, so I'll start. Love You Forever, written by Robert Munch and illustrated by Sheila McGraw. A mother held her new baby and very slowly rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. While she held him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby will be." The baby grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was 2 years old, and he ran around all the house. He pulled all the books off the shelves. He pulled all the food out of the refrigerator, and he took his mother's watch and flushed it down the toilet. Sometimes his mother would say, "This kid is driving me crazy." But at night, when that 2-year-old was quiet, she opened the door to his room. Thank you. Crawled across the floor, looked up over the side of the bed, and if he was really asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. While she rocked him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be." The little boy grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was 9 years old. And he never wanted to come in for dinner. He never wanted to take a bath. And when Grandma visited, he always said bad words. Sometimes his mother wanted to sell him to the zoo. But at nighttime, when he was asleep, the mother quietly opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. If he was really asleep, she picked up that 9-year-old boy and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be." The boy grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a teenager. He had strange friends, he wore strange clothes, and he listened to strange music. Sometimes his mother felt like she was in a zoo. But at nighttime, when that teenager was asleep, the mother opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of the bed. If he was really asleep, she picked up that great big boy and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. While she rocked him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be." That teenager grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a grown-up man. He left home and got a house across town. But sometimes, on dark nights, the mother got into her car and drove across town. If all the lights in her son's house were out, she opened his bedroom window, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. If that great big man was really asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be." Well, that mother, she got older. She got older and older and older. One day she called up her son and said, "You better come see me because I'm very old and sick." So her son came to see her. When he was in the door, when he came in the door, she tried to sing the song. She sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always," but she couldn't finish it because she was too old and sick. The son went up to his mother. He picked her up and rocked her back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And he sang this song, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my mom B.O.P." When the son came home that night, he stood for a long time at the top of the stairs. Then he went into the room where his very new baby daughter was sleeping. He picked her up in his arms and very slowly rocked her back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. While she rocked him, he sang, "I'll love you forever, I'll like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby, you'll be."
What a beautiful story. I don't know if you know the story behind the story. This almost wasn't published because the children's publisher thought it was too grim. But it's this beautiful story of the unfailing love of a mother. It's also the story of a son's love for his mother. But it is also a story birthed out of tremendous grief. I don't know if many know what inspired this book by Robert Munch. What inspired it was actually the death of 2 stillborn babies that him and his wife had. And on the death of the second stillborn baby, Robert Munch had a song running through his mind. A song that he couldn't say out loud, it was too painful. And after years of holding it inside and not even be able to tell his wife about this story, one day he was at a reading and this story popped into his mind, and he thought, well, maybe I would be able to tell the story through, or still tell the song through a story. And this is how this story was birthed, and how this beautiful song was able to be sung. I'll love you forever. And so at its heart, this is actually a story of how death cannot defeat love. So even though these babies were not able to live past birth, he still loved them. He still loved these children. The Apostle Paul talks about this in his letter to the early Christians in Rome, this idea of love defeating death. He says this, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? As it is written, for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things," he writes, "we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels nor demons, neither the present nor future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. A major significance of what Christ did on the cross in giving his life was not just so that we may be saved or healed, as Chris was saying, but also as an example that death actually has no longer any power. Death may be the end of our bodies, but our true selves, our innermost being, our soul, is reunified with God without any earthly barrier. And as we know, Margaret had all sorts of earthly barriers near the end. And so what is beautiful about this story, and especially this image of the son holding the mother, it is like an image of our Creator, Margaret's Creator, holding her. Because now, even though her earthly body is gone, she is being held in the loving arms of her Creator, who sings to her, "I'll love you forever. I'll like you for always. As long as eternity, my child you'll be." And we're going to watch a little video that was prepared by Keelan. Thanks. And enjoy these pictures of a life well lived. Before we close, just a couple of announcements. The family has asked that in lieu of flowers, that donations would be most appreciated towards the Parkinson's Society of BC. Also, if you didn't know, there's a reception directly following this service. Although, do you need a few minutes? No, you're good to go. All right. The boss says we don't need any time. So if you don't know where Margaret's house is, it is just basically go to the top of the hill, turn left until you see the school, and it's directly across the school, from the school. It's green, and yeah, it's green. So can't miss it. So on behalf of the family, again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this and for honoring Margaret. And now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and grant you peace at this time. Amen.